The Sunflower Showdown is going to take a different look this season. New head coach for Kansas State. And for Kansas, are they on the hot seat? Lance Leipold? Let's talk about it. Locked On College Crossover.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into a Locked On College Crossover, a Sunflower Showdown edition. Locked On Kansas State, Locked On Jayhawks, Johnson, Christian Rauh here. Let's get right to it. Thank you so much for making either one of our shows your first listen or second listen of the day, depending if you're listening as a bonus episode on today's episode. Let's get to it, Derek. Let's start right from the jump. Let's do this episode hot. Lance Leipold. Last year, 5-7, just missed the bowl game. You can make the argument that if the Cincinnati situation would have been in a different way, maybe you would be 6-6. Couldn't do it against the Sunflower Showdown, but regardless, we'll talk about it in a different thing. Is he on a hot seat this year? Is he on the hot seat?
I think a lot of fans would tell you yes, but I don't think he is. Now, obviously, if he goes like 0-12 or something, then like that would change the conversation. But realistically, if they win, at least 4 games or whatever, I think there would be a lot of fans that would go, hey, 3 straight seasons without a bowl game. Like, is it time to look for somebody else? I don't think it would happen. I don't know what the buyout drops to next year, but as of right now, the buyout is like $22.9 million. And Kansas, I mean, listen, you see some of the SEC schools and Penn State with James Franklin, like a big donor steps up, but Kansas is in a unique position right now where it's like, you're not just trying to pay for, basketball and football and NIL and everything. You're still paying for this new stadium that you're building right now, right? That's something that a lot of other schools don't have, and that costs a lot of money. Kansas is also working on an indoor practice facility for baseball, which is going to cost like $15 million. So I don't think Kansas is in the right position right now that it would happen. I think it would have to be like an absolute disaster, like off the field stuff, or like I said, like 0-12, 1-11 to get into that conversation. To me, the make it or break it year would be 2027.
Okay. How much of should we give him leeway? And the reason I say that is before him, we know where this program was. And although that they are not where you want them to be, competing for Big 12 championships, getting yourself at least bowl eligible year in and year out, he has definitely raised that floor. I think I can definitely say that for certain. Do we think we need to give him that type of leeway? Is that what you're saying this year is not the make it break it one for you?
Well, I think if the money was in a different direction, then maybe it would be a different conversation. But yeah, I do think that's important to note. Like, even as much as the last 2 years missing bowl games has hurt, and obviously the late game losses, the close score losses, the game management questions, that has made it, I think, more of a question. But like, at the end of the day, you've won 5 games the last 2 years, and that is more than you won in any season prior to Mark Mangino, and I get it. Like, expectations change, and Kansas fans are allowed to feel like they want more, and they absolutely should want more. Right. But it's also important to have realistic expectations, even if you're going to hope for more, if that kind of makes sense. So the way that I kind of look at it is Lance Leipold's an older coach too. I think, who knows? For all we know, he retires at the end of this season. He retires at the end of 2027, and maybe a guy like Andy Kotelnicki takes over the job or something like that. Like, that's entirely possible too, that this isn't even a conversation there. But I do think it is important to bring up that also, whatever happens at the end here of the Lance Leipold tenure, regardless of how it goes, it was still a home run hire. To go from where Kansas was to be winning bowl games. Listen, I would like, have them to made at least a bowl game one of the last 2 years, if not both years. I would have liked them to beat a rival. He hasn't beat K-State or Missouri yet in a season. But at the end of the day, it's still a home run from where this Kansas program was. It's just, we'll see kind of how it ends.
A shocking potential retirement after a season inside the Big 12, inside the state of Kansas. Has that happened before? I don't know. Are you sure that can actually happen? You think that might happen? We just saw that happen with Kansas State and Chris Kleiman.
Well, and Lance Leipold and Chris Kleiman are actually kind of buddy. Like, they're close. Like, I'm sure there was a lot of people on the K-State side. I know this was like, there's a lot of people on the KU side that kind of were not happy about that, how close they seem to kind of be, right? That they want it to be more animosity. So, if Chris Kleiman's enjoying his year off and doing fun things, and Lance will probably reach out to him and be like, are you are you enjoying this, not getting to coach football? And if Chris Kleiman's like, nah, I'm getting the itch again, maybe it's, what he needs to keep coaching. Or if he's like, nah, I'm really enjoying, getting to see the grandkids more, do this and that, then maybe Lance Leipold's like, yeah, I think I might want to do that too.
Yeah, imagine if they did the complete opposite, found themselves coaching together somewhere, and maybe in the FCS or something. That'd be absolutely hilarious. Not saying that's going to happen, but there's always scenarios in the head. One thing that is going to be a big change as well, obviously, Colin Klein, the head coach at Kansas State. We'll talk about more of that later on in the next segment. I'm sure you have some questions and thoughts there. Let's stick on the Jayhawks side, though. Your quarterback situation is going to look completely different in 2026. There's no Daniels. Daniels is no longer there for the first time in 5 years? So now it's six. Yeah, I'm in the wrong direction. What's that look like, and how has that been this offseason? I'm sure that's got to be a big narrative for you.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, nobody knows who's going to win the quarterback job. I mean, it feels like, if I had to guess right now, Cole Ballard would be the guy that I would assume is going to be the starter, but it gets complicated because with Cole Ballard, he's the most experienced and seems to have, I don't know, maybe the highest floor knowing the system. When you look at Isaiah Marshall, he is just an electric runner, and he is somebody that I think KU fans want to see on the field. I'm actually like a big Chase Jenkins guy who they brought in as a transfer from Rice. I went back and watched some of his, film of his games and was really impressed and didn't think the stats totally spoke about what his game was. But he was injured in spring ball, and so that puts him behind the 8 ball for this competition. And I think as we're talking KU State, like, we did get to see Cole Ballard in a game against Kansas State, and it wasn't his best game. He had, I think he turned it over twice, although I want to say one of the interceptions was on a 4th down and long where he just had to kind of throw one up. And so that's not really against him. He did have an interception that was dropped, so maybe that, filters out and just transfers with that. Honestly, he did enough in that game to win the game. Like, I mean, if Trevor Wilson catches the punt, if Rich Miller catches the pick 6 that could have been had, like, he wins the game as is. And I think his total QBR in the game was over 60, which is decent enough. So it'll be very interesting to see who the quarterback is. I think one thing is for sure. I would be surprised if whoever the quarterback is able to be as productive as Jalen Daniels or Jason Bean were. I think this Kansas team is going to have to be about more than just the quarterback position. It's going to have to be about running the football. It's going to have to be about the defense. Can this be the best defense of Leipold era? And what does former K-State Wildcat Dylan Edwards do, right? I mean, KU has a chance to turn him into something good in the Andy Kotelnicki offense, but is he going to be ready for a bulk of big carries? Is he going to, stay with the team, right? Is last year enough to kind of humble him to get one good season from him, similar to when, Terrell Owens went to the Philadelphia Eagles and had one good year, helps him go to the Super Bowl? I don't know. It'll be very interesting to see because right now I would say the most question marks we've seen in the Lance Leipold era since maybe like the first or second year.
I know there's a lot of drama surrounding Dylan Edwards, and of course that's going to be a big story, especially when it comes game week between Kansas and Kansas State. But man, I mean, when he is healthy and he is able to take the bulk of the carries, he's one of the most electric running backs in college football. He really is. But the thing is, we didn't get to see it enough. We saw it in the Ray Bowl game against Rutgers, where he was I think he was either over 200 yards total or just under it. He had one really solid game against UCF last season as well, and that was about it. If he has the opportunities to excel, then Kansas is in a really good spot, at least in the running back game for sure. You won't get a Dylan Edwards hater out of me when it comes to his playing type. If he's able to be healthy, no doubt about that for sure. That's going to be such an interesting narrative, though. There's no doubt about that. And I know the fans on each side are going to milk that as long as they possibly can. Let's talk the other side. Let's talk Kansas State as we come right back on this Locked On College crossover. But first, Derek, the biggest stage in the world soccer is here, and every match feels like the potential for a memorable moment. One goal can completely change the energy of a game, shift momentum, alter the outcome in an instant, and that's what makes tournament soccer so exciting. From the opening whistle to the final kick, now FanDuel is giving fans another reason to stay locked into every match with every goal pays. You need another reason. US is already doing pretty good. All you got to do is bet on a match, get bonus bets for every goal scored in that match. More goals means more bonus bets. All you have to do is turn on your token. Right now, we're recording this one. I think we're putting this out for Monday for you folks on this bonus episode. United States doesn't play until Wednesday, but the odds still look pretty good for them to win the whole thing. I don't know if they will. I think they've already done a pretty respectful thing, but odds are sitting around plus 3,000. France seems like the favorite, though, here, Derek.
Yeah, and it's the path got a little more difficult here with some recent results, but hey, you can also get them plus 100 at FanDuel to make the quarterfinals.
Ooh, that might be the play right there. Get down there one more step, and that's talking really respectful for the United States men's soccer team. Hopefully they can make that happen. So from the opening whistle to the final kick, let there be goals on FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com to get started now. Welcome back to this Locked On College crossover. Locked On Jayhawks, Locked On Kansas State. Derek, I'm sure you have plenty of questions on what's going on with Colin Klein and his Kansas State squad as we get ready for this season. FanDuel has win total for Kansas State at 8.5. And as much as I want to say, yeah, that's a sure thing, that's a high expectation for a first-year head coach.
Yes, very high. And it's funny because when you look at the win totals in the Big 12, it's very much like, I don't know, it's just like everybody is really condensed in and packed in more than some of the other teams, which I think at the end of the day is them just kind of shrugging their shoulders sometimes and being like, I don't know, you guys figure it out. You bet on the over under win totals. But when you look at this first season, I find it interesting because there were some key players that obviously graduated, some others that transferred away. And like, do you think that they retooled enough in the transfer portal with Colin Klein this first year? And do you think, like, I don't know, like, is that going to be an adjustment for the current guys on the roster to getting to know his offense, even though he was with K-State for so many years?
Yeah, that's interesting. That's a really good, fun way to look at it. Let's talk offense first. One, of course, Avery Johnson's still there, and Colin Klein is the guy who recruited Avery Johnson. So there's a lot of optimistic viewpoints on how that's going to be. Can Avery Johnson finally reach that potential that a lot of folks think he can get to, maybe raise that completion percentage up, be more seen as that dual threat quarterback under Colin Klein? If you compare to how he was with Marcel Reed at Texas A&M last year, I think you have a very good reason to be excited about what comes for Kansas State this season with him at the helm. But when you look at his weapons around, Dylan Edwards taking over to Kansas, Jace Brown on the transfer portal, now going to be with LSU and Lane Kiffin. He's going to be a wide receiver that plays on Sundays, no doubt. And then you have a lot of players leaving on the offensive line, mostly not from portal, but because of eligibility reasons. Sam Heck, now part of the Carolina Panthers. I think that's my biggest concern, is how the offensive line will adjust. And if that doesn't work, then the rest of these weapons, of course, aren't going to excel. Avery Johnson's not going to have a step forward if the offensive line can't protect him. The running game is not going to excel, although Joe Jackson is back for another year, and what he did last year in the second half was certainly impressive. And there's not a true number one wide receiver on this roster, but I do think the entire wide receiver room, the floor lifted, if that makes more sense for you.
Yeah, and you bring up an interesting point with the Marcel Reed stuff, and we know Reed is very much a dual threat running quarterback, and we've talked before on the show about how when Avery Johnson is unlocked as a runner and runs the football more, like it makes Kansas State so much more difficult. Now, obviously, you don't want to get him injured, you don't want to wear him down at different points, and so you kind of want to save some of those bullets. But do you think we're going to see him run the football more this year with a Colin Klein? I mean, when I think of Colin Klein at K-State, I think of being a bell cow runner, and I don't think Avery Johnson is that style of runner. He's obviously faster, I would say. But do you think we see them run the quarterback more this year?
I think they have to. I don't know if you remember last year, but there was so many issues at the beginning of the season for Kansas State. And maybe it was, I made the argument that it was because of the Dylan Edwards injury at the beginning of the season that they didn't want to lose both of their weapons in the backfield. So they started limiting Avery Johnson a lot. And Matt Wells was putting him kind of in like this different type of prototype that wasn't fit to Avery Johnson's mold. They were trying to make him more of a pocket guy, not run. They were focusing on him sliding, even if it was before the sticks. And that just wasn't his game, at least from what we saw in years prior, when he put 5 rushing touchdowns up on Texas Tech his freshman season kind of style. So I think you have to shift back to that. Look, Avery Johnson, if he wants to play at the next level, what he's done so far is not helping his case. I think if he wants to take that next step, he's got to do it this year. I know the 5 for 5 will potentially give him a second year, but I think now is the year to make it happen. So I do think that they're going to run it a lot more with him. I think they are going to put the ball in his hands a lot more. And if they do, I think that truly does benefit Kansas State. I think they are the best offense when he is just unleashed and able to do anything that he desires to do.
Now, obviously, the Dylan Edwards thing for Kansas makes the game and the rivalry more interesting, but so does Jordan Peterson, the
Yeah.
defensive coordinator now for Kansas State, who was very highly thought of in his time at Kansas. Obviously, goes to A&M, where he's with Colin Klein, now comes over to Kansas State. Does that feel like I don't know, like the unheralded, underrated, at least from a national perspective, addition that the K-State made this offseason?
I think so. And I think it also is the most important hire for Colin Klein in his first year, because Colin Klein is obviously known as an offensive guy, being the offensive coordinator at Kansas State, being the Heisman Trophy runner-up in 2012, getting to the college football playoffs as the offensive coordinator for Texas A&M. I could spell out the resume. So having that defensive-minded coach on the other side of you is certainly important. For Peterson, I think he's done an outstanding job at bringing in some good players and retaining good players. He kept Zayshawn Rich at the corner spot, never left for the portal. Donovan McIntosh left for the portal for a few days and then quickly came right back. So you're bringing both your starting corners back to this roster, and that's a big important thing for Peterson because he's known for corners. And then you're already doing a good thing on the recruiting trail for 2027, bringing the top player in the state of Kansas for 2027, and Cooper Oachmont. So that's something to keep in mind as well. I think it's a very underrated hire. What I am concerned about, though, is how that defensive trenches will look. You lost a ton on the defensive front, whether from eligibility or the transfer portal. A couple went to Indiana. You lost some they just ran out of eligibility. One's a coach now on the defensive line. So that is my biggest concern. If they can figure out the defensive front, I think they're in really good shape, because I think the secondary should be pretty good this year.
Yeah. And when you're talking what a successful season would be, I know it's easy to just base it off the win total and be like, well, if they're over 8.5 wins, then that would be successful. But I don't know, like what does a successful season this year look like for Kansas State?
Yeah. I mean, I've gone back and forth on this, and I'm glad we're bringing it up on this show, because I've asked this to my everydayers. Like, if you go 6-6, but you lose the Sunflower Showdown, is that a successful season? I don't think so. I don't think it is, because you have that streak. It's Colin Klein's first season. For the record, by the way, when Colin Klein was a player in his first year was the last time that Kansas actually won that game. So like first year, Colin Klein doesn't, when you put it in the ties there.
Don't give me hope. Don't give
me
hope.
The stars could possibly be aligning for you, right? So like if you're 10-2, but one of those two losses is to Kansas, is that a successful season? Like, where do you draw that line if the Sunflower Showdown is a loss in your win column? And I know it shouldn't be seen as like the Super Bowl on either of our schedules, but like it is a very important game for the fan base and for the state.
No, when I look like on the flip side of it, like for Kansas, if you told me they can go 6-6 and beat one of Missouri or Kansas State, because we haven't seen KU beat either in the Lance Leipold era. If you told me 6-6 beat one of the two, I would gladly take it. Now that's different because KU's win total is 5.5. K-State is more seen as one of the contenders in the Big 12. But
what if it's the same scenario? You get one of those wins, but you're 5-7, so you're not bowl eligible.
Yeah. So like, would you rather, if you're a Kansas fan, go 6-6, but you lose to Missouri and K-State, or go 5-7, but beat K-State, for instance?
Yeah.
That's a great question. And honestly, I might take the 5-7 just because, I mean, at this point, the 17 straight hanging over their head is worse than if they miss a bowl game again.
I mean, I think, breaking that streak would be important than any other Birmingham Bowl, right?
Exactly. From a recruiting standpoint, local recruitment too. And like, here's the deal. They got rid of the APR. So like 5-7 teams can make bowl games now based on the conference picking them. So like, KU has never had good APR scores, so they've never been one of those teams. So, and heck, they got invited to a bowl game last year and declined it too, because so many teams said no. So yeah, give me the 5-7 with the win over K-State. I actually think that would be more beneficial for KU in a weird way.
I mean, that's interesting.
But see, the flip side is, because it's different when it's 5-7 versus 6-6, where it's like, oh, cool, we made a lower end bowl game. Which, listen, I don't get to see KU play in a lot of bowl games, so I'll take anything I can get. But like with the K-State element, like here would be the comparison to that. Would you take Kansas State going 10-2 with a loss to KU, but 10-2 gives you a shot at playing for a Big 12 title and therefore a college football playoff appearance? Or would you take 8-4, but a win over Kansas? Or maybe we say 9-3, but a win over Kansas, because that's probably not good enough to make the Big 12 title game.
Me personally, and I can't speak for my everydayers, but me personally would take the 10-2 and let the streak go away. Because, I mean, again, although it's really important, I would certainly rather be seen as a college football playoff contender, a chance at Arlington in what could be seen as Colin Klein's first year, obviously, and potentially Avery Johnson's final. And that, I think that even if you did lose that Sunflower Showdown, I think would trump the in-state recruiting needs that you'd need to, because you can say, well, we're a Big 12 contender. Yeah, we might have lost that game, but we're doing just fine. We found ourselves where we need to be. And that would certainly help the resume for Colin Klein. Not only could I take Texas A&M to the college football playoffs as an offensive coordinator, look what I can do in year one at my alma mater. And it could easily erase any type of thoughts of Colin Klein being called Scott Frost. Because that's there. People are thinking about it. People are certainly thinking about it.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's not the case, but it didn't work for them in Nebraska. I hope it doesn't work. I hope it does work for Colin Klein at Kansas State. Let's talk more about this on the other side. Media days are coming up. What expectations are we looking for on that one? And let's look at this game a little bit closer as we finish up this one, because both of our teams have a really tough opponent before the Sunflower Showdown. What does that mean? Let's talk about this next to wrap up this show, the Locked On College Crossover. Always fun having these chats. Locked On College Crossover, Locked On Jayhawks, Locked On Kansas State. We don't do this enough, but every time we do this, I usually get great comments saying that we need to do this more, which you'd think you wouldn't like this. You'd think that you would get in the audio feeds and be like, why are we talking about the other team? Why are we doing this? The other team in the state. But normally I get a lot of good comments that when we have these conversations. So it's pretty fun. Media days coming up, Derek, and just a couple weeks here. And, Lance Leipold going to bring some players. Colin Klein obviously going to bring some players. Completely different, I think, route of the road here for both of these coaches. You got a first-year coach that is going to be setting his expectations, and there's going to probably be some questions regarding that. I would not be surprised if the narrative for Lance Leipold, though, is more focused on where we started this show, thinking that he might be in some hot water.
I mean, the schedule is not easy for KU. And that's going to make things more difficult there in fueling kind of the conversation. And you get Missouri in your second game of the season, then you're playing in London against Arizona State. You have a bye week the next week after that long travel, and then you play 9 straight games. So the schedule doesn't do KU any favors here, whether it's the K-State game, whether it's just the full season for, trying to build together a bowl level season. But, when you look at media days upcoming, I do find it interesting that KU doesn't have the quarterback going with them. So we don't get any tell for that. But, when you look at it, it's a lot of guys that I would have expected to go. One of the guys that I wasn't sure on is Calvin Clemens, who had some ups and downs last year as a starting left tackle. And that's going to be huge for KU this season. If he can man down that position and they can be a road grading team who has a strong offensive line, maybe they can, kind of weather the storm in the schedule and shake that potential heat off. Right. And I do find it interesting in terms of, we were having that conversation earlier with the potential heat there at the head coaching position. And what would be more likely for Lance Leipold? Would it be trying to get Kansas to go off to a bowl game and then ride off into the sunset? Or would it be, hey, I went 4-8, 5-7. Like, maybe it's just time for me to move on and give it off to somebody else. I do find that kind of an interesting storyline as well. But I don't know how much he'll get asked about that specifically. I think there will be a lot of quarterback questions. He'll probably get tired of them and probably won't give much away. But yeah,
I hope that if that is the case, if there is a point where you're thinking that it might be the final year for him, that you do get the first scenario where you can go 6-6 and kind of pull the Chris Klieman, because I think there's still a lot of positive feelings towards Chris Klieman. Although the season didn't go as expected and you still went 6-6, you still were bowl eligible, moving on, and they moved on super fast and went to Colin Klein. You still have a lot of deep respect for Chris Klieman. I know the majority of the fan base does. I would love for that to happen for you over at KU when it comes to Leipold, if he could at least leave as a bowl eligible and then move on, if that was the case, instead of going 4-8 and have that sour taste in their mouth. As also, by the way, as someone who just dealt with this last year, international travel at the beginning of the season is not fun. Don't recommend it. So that hopefully that doesn't go hard against you. Doing it against the conference rival too. I mean, that
and
was
right after you play, right after you play Missouri, it's not even like it's week 0 where you have all this time to get ready.
I think you got it worse. Yeah, I think you got it worse because you don't get the prep all off season for a international trip. You are already 2 games deep. You're already going to be beat up. You're playing an SEC opponent. You're in week 2. Like, yeah, I think you have it worse than what Kansas State and Iowa State did in Dublin week 0. And then, week 5, you go and travel to Utah before you play the Sunflower Showdown. Kansas State has Houston, both really 2 tough games before the Sunflower Showdown takes off. I think if anything, I think we are going to certainly know what both teams are by the time we get there. I think that the identities will certainly be there. I don't think we'll be talking about first-year head coach Colin Klein. I don't think we'll be talking about Leipold, about, what will he be this season. We will know about both sides of this team.
Yeah, and it's just really tough when you have to go. I mean, playing at Utah, which is in altitude too, so now you're having to worry about that come down. Utah's usually a very physical team. I mean, we'll see what they are this year with a new head coach, one who's ranked higher than Colin Klein, right? No, wink, wink, nod at that. But yeah, that's brutal, right? Like you would have. I mean, it's interesting because last year both teams had a bye coming into the game, and I mean, it's hard to say it didn't help K-State more than it did KU. Like, clearly they did a better job preparing for the game with the extra week off with how that beatdown went. So I don't know, maybe that's actually a good thing that both teams are coming off tough games, because we saw both teams coming off rest last year and it didn't work for KU. So maybe they need it to be completely opposite this time.
I'm crazy. I don't think the expectations about them being a 9-win team is still wild to me, but I do think that Kansas State can get off to a really hot start. When you look at their schedule, I think their non-conference is very doable. They obviously have a bone to pick with last year's non-conference slate because they struggled, but I think they can go 3-0 in non-conference. I like their Big 12 road opener, Big 12 opener against Cincinnati. Houston's a tough one for me. I think they could be 4-1 when they get to the Sunflower Showdown. On the flip side, though, KU, what would you see as a successful first 5 games before this game?
I mean, they're going to be underdogs to Missouri, even though it's a home game. They're going to be dogs there. And then you look at the Utah game, like, I don't know, probably double-digit dogs if Utah's as good as I think they'll be. I don't know. Again, it's tough with the new coach. So you're looking at least 2 losses. And then the Arizona State game's a coin flip game, right? Overseas, playing Arizona State. I don't know how great they'll be this year. Like, I trust their head coach, but Sam Leavitt no longer there. Like, we don't exactly know. So Kansas is either going to be probably 2-3 or 3-2 coming into that game. And you're playing on the road. Like you said, K-State could have a hot start. They could be ranked at that point in time. Like, I would imagine K-State will be favored around a touchdown.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that happening, being the case for sure, man. I mean, 4-1 versus 3-2. If that's how we entered the middle of the season in the Sunflower Showdown, that's going to be a very pivotal game. And
but I mean, to the flip side of what we've kind of been talking about today, if they're 2-3, if they lost the Arizona State game too, and then KU loses to K-State again, and they're now 2-4 with already 2 losses to both your rivals, there's the hot seat for you, right?
100%. 100%. So maybe this might be the final Sunflower Showdown with this exact coaching lineup. Exciting stuff. We're going to definitely break this down more over the next couple of weeks. We're going to do this more. We need to do this more before the season starts, because it is always fun hanging out with you, Derek Johnson, Locked On Jayhawks. Make sure you can check out his show wherever you listen to Locked On Kansas State as well. Always a good time. Let's get on out of here. Thank you so much for listening and watching. Please like the video. Please subscribe. This has been a Locked On College crossover of Locked On Jayhawks and Locked On Kansas State.